I have the pleasure to reintroduce our next speaker, my esteemed colleague Denise Patry Leidy, who is curator in the Department of Asian Art. Throughout the planning of Eternal Ancestors, Denise Leidy most generously contributed her insights on how works from Asia provide interesting parallels to the African traditions highlighted. Her doctoral dissertation from Columbia University's Art History Department examined Northern Chi Buddhist sculpture, and as a curator here at the Metropolitan since 1995, she's contributed to numerous landmark exhibitions and installations, notably among these China, Dawn of a Golden Age, and defining Yongle imperial art in early 15th century China. She's been a curator at the Boston Museum of Fine Arts and assistant director of the Asia Society here in New York, and she's currently preparing an important catalog of Chinese, Buddhist, and Taoist sculpture in the Metropolitan's collection. I want to thank her for sharing her reflections with us this morning that further expand upon the subject of the exhibition. The title of her talk is The Buddha's Relics, Icon, and Sanctity in Asia. Please join me in welcoming Denise Patry Leidy.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming. I would like to thank Alyssa for inviting me to participate in this symposium, and Joseph and Alyssa for their very, very gracious introductions. Do I just get the first? Let me see if I get the first. Oh, I do. Okay. Before we begin, as both Alyssa and Joe have mentioned, my talk is going to be about relics in Buddhism. And what I'm hoping to do is look at both the use of relics in Asia, or in Buddhist Asia, and ways in which they have impacted the development of other art forms. I wanted to begin by reminding all of you that, of course, Asia is a very, very big place. And although I have chosen today to stress commonalities in the practice of Buddhism throughout Asia, it is, of course, true that within all these very, very diverse regions, there have always been regional differences as well. Since this is broadly about Africa, I thought it would be more reasonable to look at Buddhist Asia very, very broadly, but I could come back and we could talk about any one of the many cultures we'll touch on today. I also wanted to point out that there's a huge flaw in my map, which is that Afghanistan is missing. So it's basically right here. And Afghanistan and this, what they're now calling China up here, is usually in the field of Asian studies referred to as Central Asia, and that is the term that I will be using today. And just to remind you, we're going to be dancing around right here a little bit, so I'll remind you that I did show you where it was. As you all know, Buddhism begins with the life of one man. Buddhist texts tell us that as is the wont of all human beings, this individual, who we know today as Siddhartha Gautama, lived numerous lifetimes, probably as many as 500. In some of those lifetimes, he was a human being. In others, he was an animal. In each and every lifetime, he practiced certain kinds of disciplines, and he developed virtues. And it is this accumulation of these developed virtues that allowed him, in his final lifetime, as the human being Siddhartha Gautama, to become an awakened being, to be enlightened, to be the Buddha. For those of you who are a little bit older, you may have been taught that he died in the 5th or 6th century BC. The new thinking is that he died in around 400 BC, and it is the moment of his death that is the beginning of the rather wide-ranging story that we will be exploring today. To start it off, therefore, and also to show off a little bit, I'm showing you a piece from our collection that is Japanese and dates to the 14th century, and essentially and is over 6 feet high, by the way. What we're looking at is actually the moment of the death of Siddhartha Gautama. This is a standard iconography. You can find it in any Asian culture. The Buddha himself, the historical man, shown larger than life size, is lying on a bier. Essentially what happened is that he is said to have been traveling, to possibly have eaten something, maybe some spoiled pork, to have reached a place called Kushinagara, where he felt very ill, and he essentially laid down and died. And that at the moment of his death, the entire world, demons and semi-demons, his disciples, and even the animal kingdom were aware of the momentous passing of this very, very important figure, and that we are told that they all rushed to his side, including his mother, who came down from the heavens, and that there was massive mourning and sadness, except, of course, for one figure. This is a monk. He's right here in this painting. His name is Sudana, and that is because of all the entities in the world at this time. Sudana understood that the death of the historical Buddha was a very, very good thing, because finally this being, who had lived over 500 years, had achieved enough spiritual wisdom to transcend or escape from the phenomenal world, from the wheel of life and death, and he was finally free. So that it was a very, very good thing that this had happened. Everybody else didn't quite get this, and usually scenes of the Buddha's final passing, which many of you may know is called the Parinirvana, are filled with chaos and people mourning. My particular favorite in this painting is the elephant in the front here. Can you see him, the white elephant, who's on his back with his legs and, I guess it's his paws actually, up in the arm, and his trunk is all twisted, and he's just writhing in pain. And it is this moment that begins Buddhist practice, or I should say at which Buddhist art is thought to begin. And it is also at this moment that our study of relics begin. So these are both Pakistani. They're 2nd or 3rd century AD, and you can see, again, a scene of the passing of the historical Buddha, and also the calm monk amid the chaos. Both of these would have been part of a narrative cycle of images, and after you had seen this, you would probably see something like this, which is in fact a scene of the distribution of the relics. Documents tell us, Buddhist texts tell us, that after he died, the historical Buddha was cremated, and his relics were divided into 7 receptacles, which you can see here, which were then spread among the 7 major polities or small kingdoms that occupied the Indian subcontinent at this point in time. And it is at this point that we run into the primary paradoxes in the study of relics in the Buddhist tradition. Because if, in fact, it was a good thing that this historical figure had escaped from the wheel of life and death, then we kind of have to ask ourselves why everybody was fighting over his ashes. And embedded in that is the belief in the understanding of relics as something that somehow or other, regardless of what they are, and they can be many different things in Asia, embody the essence of a person, both in a corporeal sense, but also in the sense of his spiritual development, and possibly also in the notion, from the original use of the word, of his charisma. So the idea that this being had understood something and was somehow or other capable of sending that or sharing that with the rest of us, even if it's just something in a box that's some ashes. And this concept, this paradox, had a profound impact on the development of art in Buddhist Asia. Interestingly enough, we're looking at texts that are many hundreds of years after the fact, and we don't have a lot of evidence for the use of Buddhism in Asia from around 400 BC, when the historical Buddha is thought to have died, till 273 to 223 BC, when an emperor named Ashoka, who can very easily be likened to the Constantine of Christian traditions, and who ruled the largest empire on the Indian subcontinent until the period of time of the Buddhist Raj, was converted to Buddhism.